Welcome to episode 6 of the MJ Sports Podcast. I'm Mark and I'm joined by Jonas. And this is your week of sports in review.
Sports. Woo! And we're back once again, bringing the sports deliciousness to your ears.
That's an interesting way to phrase it, but I'm game for it. I like it.
Just trying to be a little bit crazy out there, I guess. I don't know.
Well, we've got to drum up a little bit of craziness since we made people wait a little bit longer this week.
That's right.
It's a little extra bit of tidbit juiciness that you get.
A delicacy.
Yes. This podcast is sounding more and more like a food podcast.
Well, I have nothing related. About the only thing I can think of that's related to food is like the like helmet nachos for Milwaukee.
That's right.
But
those $30 helmet nachos, well worth it though. Well worth it.
That's right.
Anyways, well, speaking of helmet nachos, let's start off today by talking a little bit about the MLB. I think every baseball fan, aside from Jonas, cried out in relief that the Astros couldn't complete their comeback.
I mean, I don't know. I thought it was going to be rough. Honestly, I didn't think they were even going to have a chance at getting 3-3. I thought maybe 2 games, but I mean they kept it close there in Game 7, but couldn't do it. They needed that trash can.
Or Garrett Cole.
Just think if they would have had Verlander pitch 2 of those games, could have been different if he wasn't hurt.
I know. It's a big difference there because losing Cole and Verlander, that's and I'm not exactly, I know everybody says this every year because Verlander's getting old, but no one sees him doing great, for the following season, but especially coming off of an injury. I'm not sure I'm too confident in his future as their bona fide ace.
Yeah, I mean, this year whenever I drafted him in fantasy baseball, I was thinking, oh, this will be the year that he gets hurt, and he did. So that was good to see. And usually that signifies the end of the line for some of these older players after I draft them. So, yeah, I have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's a tough procedure to come back from at his age. So, the Astros couldn't complete the comeback, but on the opposite side, the Dodgers did complete their comeback, and which I think it was wild that we had 2 comebacks like that anyways.
I know. I was really hoping for the storyline of the Astros versus the Dodgers. They both come back from, deficits in the series. But, maybe it's just Atlanta sports is just terrible at holding on to leads. And I just feel really bad for the Atlanta sports fans right now.
Yeah, Falcons get a win, but what did it cost? It cost them their Braves.
It cost them their Braves, and, you're trying to tank for Trevor right now, so why would you even want to win a game?
Yeah, but I feel like, when you tank, you really don't want to, sloppy on-field performance to make it look like your players just aren't trying. And granted, I don't think the players are ever trying to tank. It's more so the front office, maybe the coaching staff, but the players themselves, they're never going to try to tank. I just feel like the Jets have absolutely no talent. So even if Atlanta had their players trying to tank, I'm still not sure they would finish out below the Jets.
I know, like honestly, yeah. Well, I guess they did just fire like Dan Quinn, so it was like, well, I guess we need to get a win here. But
Yeah, I mean, you got to think the players were a little fired up, and part of that too is probably new coach has, even though he's coming from within the organization, may not put up with some of the things or may not give some of the leniencies to certain players or certain activities that Dan Quinn did. So as a player, you're trying to earn that respect from your coach all over again. So I think that really probably helped fire them up a little bit.
yeah, well, before we get too much in the NFL, the Dodgers are up 6-1 right now in Game 3 at the new Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas, the Rangers' new stadium. And I mean, Charlie Morton gave up some runs here, and Walker Buehler is looking pretty good in this one. He had a no hitter going through 4 innings, but yeah, I mean, what do you think? You think the Dodgers will end up winning this series? Which obviously you said that I guess at the beginning of the playoffs, but you still think they're going to win?
I mean, I picked them. Here's the thing: the Rays offensively have been horrible through this postseason. Like, if you look at their team batting average, it is not good. So, LA is not having that problem, and LA's got their pitching going. So, I mean, granted, the Rays still have plenty of good pitching on their own. They've got that killer bullpen too, but I yeah, I still think the Dodgers win this
Well,
one.
wasn't there? I think I saw a stat. It was like the Rays haven't lost a playoff game this year if they've scored 4 runs or more. But yeah, I don't know. I don't. I mean, you knew their offense was going to be bad because they have a whole bunch of guys that like are usually average to below average players, and they're all just having like a decent season. So you're kind of relying on your pitchers. But the Rays pitchers, while they're good, they're not quite Steven Strasburg and Max Scherzer from last year. So
Yeah, I mean, it's still a young team. Rays, tough part about the Rays is, it's hard to retain good talent just because of the price it takes to do so. Because teams like the Dodgers will come out and pay whatever it takes to steal your players away. So, um, you got to hope they can pull it out. I mean, and I'm going to butcher his last name, but Randy.
I think it's like Arena or something. I think it's
Yeah, yeah, we'll call him that. Um, he has been incredible this postseason. He didn't play a whole lot. I think he missed 34 games in the regular season or something like that because of a COVID test. Like, so he missed a lot of time, but he has been absolutely incredible in this postseason. So you gotta, you know, he's a guy I'm real interested to see a lot more of next year. And granted, Austin Meadows coming off of an injury, you got to think that he's probably not, feeling 100% still. I mean, they've still got a lot of good pieces there. And, I'm not saying they're completely out of this series, but I still think they have a lot to look forward to in the future as well.
I mean, this is a bold prediction by me right here, but I think the Rays are going to be your team that has a good season, gets to the World Series. They might end up winning this still, but I don't know. I think in a 182 game season, if baseball goes back to that this next year, I don't know. I'm not sure if they even make the playoffs, to be honest. But
See, but they're very crafty. Like they're similar to Milwaukee, that they shuffle a lot of players, between the minor leagues and the major league camp. Like they do a lot of roster transactions throughout the year to get advantages. So I don't know. I mean, the analytical part of baseball is really interesting to me. You've got some teams who embrace it fully, like the Brewers and the Rays are probably the two teams that embrace it the most. You see it in the way they shift. You see it in the way they play their pitching matchups. I mean, pretty much everything they do is analytical based. And then maybe you see some other teams that are a little more old school. Like I don't know if the Cardinals were this way this year, but a year or two ago, they were, I believe, the team that used the least amount of shifting. They kind of more stuck to classic baseball um, strategy rather than what the analytics have to say. So I think it's really interesting to see how that plays out. And I think that's something you see along the smaller market teams doing a lot more, trying to get every edge they can. So I don't know. I know some people get mad and they call it spreadsheet baseball. I don't remember who it was. Someone said that if the Rays won the World Series, it was a broadcaster, I believe, said it would be horrible if the Rays won the World Series for baseball because it's spreadsheet baseball, which isn't as fun to watch.
I,
Which personally I disagree with,
I think
but
that just goes back to like your traditional versus kind of trying to bring in some newer type of stuff to baseball. And I think some of these like really old school like people are like almost hurting the game just because it's like just for an example, like I saw like an Instagram post the other day. It was like, should baseball stick with this current playoff format or go back to the 5 team? And like everyone was like, 5 teams, go back to 5 teams. Losing record you shouldn't get in the playoffs with a losing record and all this. And I was thinking, but why? Like the Astros just made it. We're 1 game away from the World Series with a losing record, and it's just. I think more playoff teams is more entertaining. You have more wild things. Like kind of reminds me of March Madness more. But I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are going forward on 5 team or the 8 team playoff.
personally, I like more teams because it discourages tanking for those kind of maybe not going to compete for the World Series, but are fringe playoff teams. It prevents them from just throwing away their season. So I like that idea, and I mean I like a lot of the new age kind of ideas, like some of the traditions in baseball bog it down. Like personally, I love seeing the bat flips. I love seeing the fights break out. I like seeing the fired up players. Like I think it brings a lot of excitement to the game. I know a lot of older school, fans are not a fan of it. But personally, I love it. I think it brings a lot more excitement to the game, and I think it might attract new viewers a little bit more to the game. I don't agree with some of Rob Manfred's ideas to speed up the game,
No,
and
right.
we've talked about that before. Very different things. I'm talking more about some of the unwritten stuff that isn't necessarily a rule. Manfred's just out here trying to make it a whole nother game that's 3 innings long
Yeah.
and not half the length of the season. So
I mean, I wouldn't even mind if they kept like the 8 team playoff and say they did like 142 games if they really wanted to. But I don't know. Yeah, I just think it makes it more interesting. But
yeah, the thing with the shorter season is people aren't going to like it as much because they're going to players aren't going to be as likely to break records at that rate for pure numbers. Like you're going to run into fans and players complaining about that. Personally, I don't want to see the short season shortened. I'm fine with it the way it is, but I don't feel like there's I don't feel like shortening the season is going to attract any new fans.
No, probably
Like,
not. I was just throwing out something if people were like, well, the season's already too long, we don't need another round of playoffs. But I mean, the baseball is the fastest, gets their playoffs done the fastest. I mean, you had one game just about every day for the entirety of the playoffs. So
yeah,
I just think some of these fans you just can't please some of these fans. It's ridiculous.
no, you really can't. I mean, you get a little bit of this in every sport with some, a difference between how the game is played over time. But I feel like baseball has the worst differences in fans. Just because with the NBA, you see it with like people talking about today how the NBA today, isn't as tough as what it was, back when Jordan played and when some of the other legends played, which is fine, but you don't see as many, other complaints about the way the game is played in the NBA now. NFL, I mean, you have similar stuff in the NFL, but the justification for that is player safety, and the numbers have backed it up. And I think everybody's in favor of trying to protect NFL players. Um, I think they do get some, they do make some mistakes in the NFL with some of the rules they implement, but at least they're trying to protect players. With the MLB, it's mostly just like I just don't like seeing players celebrate home runs, or I don't like it's more so like not liking the players' personalities or how they express themselves on the field, and I just think
No,
that's stupid.
I know I think it's funny because like how much like everyday jobs, let's say like you like own a business or something and you make a sale or you know what I don't know if like another like great example or like you're a scientist or something and you run a test and you come across like a great find or just whatever simple test you run even in like a college lab it's like oh this worked it's like you do like a little celebratory dance so I don't know why it should be any different for sports why they if you hit a home run you should be able to celebrate however you want.
Yeah, I agree. Well, actually, I mean that's kind of why I've taken over the years I've kind of become gradually more invested in watching hockey because those hockey players express themselves, and if hockey, I kind of like that the league just lets players actually get in
Yeah,
fights and let them play out for a while. Like, some of the baseball brawls get really intense. And granted, I know they have equipment like bats and stuff that you don't want, involved there. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's a little entertaining when stuff like that happens. I know it's not great for, setting a great example for younger people, but I think it's
I
entertaining
mean
personally.
like as far as like it's a great example for younger people goes. I mean, I don't know. I feel like for the most part, you're not like your 8-year-old kid isn't gonna like if he gets hit by a pitch. I don't see the 8-year-old kid ever running up and trying to beat up whoever threw the ball. Like I don't. You never really see that in little league. It's more of like the parents that are like wanting to fight the other parents or whatever. So I
That's
don't really
true.
see like a ton of like fighting in little league baseball that kind of like that stuff. It seems more prevalent in like the
Yeah,
other like it seems like basketball is probably the most like the kids who play basketball are the ones that watch the NBA and kind of try to role model themselves after like LeBron or Curry more so. And maybe that's just because there's so many baseball players, that you could model yourself after that, you know. But
well, to be honest, too, I mean, if you're a younger kid, I'm not sure watching baseball captivates you as much, uh, especially with the frequency of games and how long they can be. So I think basketball is a little more appealing to younger kids, but I think over time, I've appreciated baseball so much more. Like when I was younger, mostly just enjoyed watching football. And then as I started, getting a little watching more and more MLB games, I became really invested. Now I pretty much watch every baseball game that's on. So kind of that
Yeah,
snowball effect
I
there.
agree. I think it just, and that's where I think, unless you're like a super, which I know, like say that we're probably, more hardcore like fans of baseball and fans of our teams. Um, but like I think like in the kind of a newer age spreadsheet baseball benefits the more casual fans more than kind of the more hardcore purist originalists or whatever you want to call them. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we need to have an originalist on the podcast to defend that point of view.
I mean, I'm
Well,
sure
I
we could
think we could
find
probably
one.
find one too. Oh man. Well,
Be a special feature of
yes,
ours.
yes. Just a debate sports podcast. Maybe on a slower week of sports.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
well, that's the MLB slowly coming to a close, and that's going to leave more and more just NFL talk. And I guess we can get into the NFL uh, for this past week. And I guess we'll start off, or at least I want to start off with the game last night. I know we both talked about the game a little bit. We both ended up picking the Eagles to win that game. So, it looked questionable there for most of the game. And the Giants collapsed like they usually do against the Cowboys and the Eagles, and they can just never beat us for some reason. And
I think a good way to word that would be to say they tripped over their own
I think
feet.
that is pretty appropriate right there. That and Daniel Jones's only inherited ability from Eli Manning was fumbleitis. So, but the one thing I kind of want to
Yeah.
focus on, because I don't think that game really surprised too many people. I mean, I figured with 7 minutes to go, the Eagles got the ball back at 21-10. I was thinking they're still going to win this game. Like, I pretty much had no real thought that the Giants were actually going to win the game. But Doug Peterson, I do not understand what he is doing as far as his coaching decisions. So to kind of lead this off, or set this up, I guess. Last week against the Ravens, they scored their first touchdown. They scored in that game. They went for two, and on their 2-point conversion, they threw like a fade to the corner of the end zone. Didn't get it, and then at the end of the game, if they would have just kicked the extra point on that first touchdown, they could have just kicked the extra point there and tied the game and send it to overtime. But instead, they have to go for two again to tie. And what do? They run a Carson Wentz draw play. And then this game against the Giants, they have a 4th and goal at like the 2-yard line, and they run another Carson Wentz draw play. Then they went for two again after they scored their second touchdown to make it 21-16 last night, and they throw another corner fade on the 2-point conversion. I do not understand their play calling. And then they had a play where they put in Jalen Hurts because on the first 2-point try, there was like a holding penalty or something weird, and so they got to retry it or something. And they ran Jalen Hurts with offensive linemen and then had like 3 or 4 people on each side and just ran some crazy play with Jalen Hurts. I just don't get it. I don't get these crazy play calls. I forget who we were talking about a couple weeks ago making just weird play calls. But I just don't get some of these coaches anymore, honestly. Oh, it was Sean
Yeah,
Payton.
I
Some of his
agree.
play calling was just wacky.
Yeah, it's not. It has not been great play calling, and I know during the game they were talking. I don't remember what the numbers were, but um, Doug Peterson has gone for two, an absurd amount of times, like since he's been the coach of the Eagles. And granted, I get it. Like some of the analytics may tell you in certain situations to go for it, go for two. But I'm not sure I'm doing that after, on the first touchdown of the game, second touchdown of the game, you know. And I understand it more like the Steelers a couple years ago when I think Boswell was hurt and they were kind of doing a kicker rotation. They just started going for two every time because they didn't have any faith in their kickers. And I understand that. Like, if you've got a hurt kicker, you might as well go for two every time because a hurt kicker's not a good kicker. So, um, but I don't know. I think some teams are trying to get a little bit too fancy with some of this play calling, and I do like seeing more team. There has been more teams that have been going for it on fourth down, which I do like because I feel like sometimes teams get a little too conservative, just trying to punt the ball away. You know, when they're at midfield. If you've got a 4th and 2 at midfield, why not try to pick it up?
Yeah. Were you going to say anything else there?
No, I mean, pretty
Yeah,
much
I was
agree
just
with
going to
everything you said.
just add on that it kind of brings in the XFL conversation of, they had the 1, the 2, and the 3-point conversion options that you could choose from. And it was like, why would you ever go for 1 point? Why not go for 3 points every time, even though it might be harder to get? Because all you have to do is get it once out of every 3 times to end up with, your original 1 point versus going for 1 every time. You got to get it all 3 times. And if you're going to go for 2 at all, really, unless you're like behind by 11 or, behind by 8 and you have to go for 2 near the end of the game. If you're going to go for 2, just go for 2 every time. And then if you get it once out of every 2 times, then you're going to equal, the same amount of points. But you still got to run a good play. And I don't think a quarterback draw with Carson Wentz or a corner fade are good plays. So there's like 2 of the worst plays in the whole game, unless you have like Lamar Jackson. But
Right. Nope, I absolutely agree. I think it was the wrong place for Carson Wentz for sure. But, well, moving on. I mean, those were two terrible teams playing. Both of our teams ended up putting up terrible performances too. Um, we could start with the Cowboys because the wound's a little fresher. Um, I'll let you talk about it since it's your team, and I'll talk more about my team.
I mean, it never feels good to, just destroy your team on a weekly basis, especially whenever you've lost more games than you won. So, I knew, obviously, I picked the Cardinals, if you listened last week, to beat the Cowboys. And, well, if you watched the game, you know how well that turned out for us. And we let Kenyon Drake rush for 164 yards. We let Kyler Murray run everywhere. Kyler Murray was 9 for 21. So we really didn't even play too bad of a passing defense, besides like one long bomb where our like third string cornerback just was watching Kyler Murray and just let Christian Kirk run right by him. Didn't really even make a move or anything. And Kenyon Drake had like 65-yard rush, and I mean DeAndre Hopkins only had two catches, but they were for 73 yards. So I don't know how, if you would consider that good or consider that bad, but I don't know. The defense, you knew the defense was bad. You knew we were going to give up points. It was more of what is our offense going to do without Dak. Granted, it was Andy Dalton's first game. He didn't look terrible. One of the interceptions should have been a penalty. I think the bigger thing is something I've been harping on for the last 2 years is Ezekiel Elliott is an actual piece of trash. He's a dumpster fire. Without a good offensive line, he's basically averaged less than 4 yards a carry. I mean, this is why you don't sign running backs. There hasn't been a single running back that has gotten paid a lot of money that is still on their original team that paid him. Todd Gurley from the Rams to the Falcons. Le'Veon Bell, he left the Steelers. You saw how well that turned out. Todd Gurley's not playing great this year. Melvin Gordon, I guess he is just depressed and likes drinking and driving. And he sucks this year, besides like one game, I guess. So I don't know. Paying running backs is just a very dumb thing to do. Just draft one, get him for 5 years, and just dump him and let somebody else give him an exorbitant amount of money. That's my spiel on that, I guess.
You pretty much you summed it up pretty well. So I'm not, I don't have much to talk about regarding the Cowboys game.
I guess
It was,
the only thing would be like the Cardinals. I know like our defense is bad, but the Cardinals still look good. Really, the Cardinals could be like undefeated. They lost to the Lions. So I mean they could be undefeated, honestly, but they look good.
Yeah, no, they look good. Andy Dalton didn't look 100%
We threw a
comfortable
bunch
back
of
there either.
screens and shorter passes, and it was kind of like, why are we doing this? Considering he just threw like 2 30-yard passes to win us the game against the Giants. So just let him sling the ball. We don't have a good enough offensive line right now. Our whole offensive line is hurt and backups. We don't have a good enough line to run it with Zeke every play, especially if he's fumbling. We got to just pass it. We have 3 good receivers. You just got to pass it. You just got to let Andy Dalton play.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. You guys have got to throw the ball down the field. I will say he seemed to really like throwing to Dalton Schultz quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, you guys have got Amari Cooper, you've got Michael Gallup, you've got CeeDee Lamb. Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore have got to start drawing up plays to encourage Andy to throw the ball down the field because, I mean, that's where you guys are going to excel. Your receivers can go up and get the ball. They can make big catches. Like you guys are primed to be a big play.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw tons of
offense.
comments that was like, "Look where we are without Dak," and I'm thinking we still lose that game with Dak. Like our defense is so atrocious, but I mean, we just didn't have once usually we get down 31-3, and then we come back 31-24 maybe, and then we still lose the game. Like it's just not as bad of a loss. And so far, so I don't know. I think we'll beat Washington this week, but it really, I don't know. It almost would be worthless to win the division, especially if the division winner's like 6-10. Whenever you could have like the 8th draft pick, but I'll turn it to you and let you diss on the Packers for a couple minutes.
Yeah. Where do I start? Here's the deal. Watching the game, that first quarter, I felt great. Like our offense was moving the ball. Our defense got 2 stops. Like I was like, oh, this looks like any other game we have. And then the pick six happened. And that's where everything got out of control. So I guess I'll break this down between the different units. Um, offensively, um, so so obviously the interceptions, seem to have rattled Rodgers a little bit. I'm not sure if they really rattled him as much. I'm just not sure he came into this game as sharp personally. I know LaFleur and Rodgers both mentioned after the game that this was not a good week of practices for them. Um, and we also got destroyed coming off of our bye last week. So, gotta wonder if maybe it's something with the bye a little bit. But essentially, both of them said that we kind of just needed that after this bad week of practice. It sounded like, team was getting a little bit too cocky, a little too high and mighty, kind of needed to be knocked down to earth. Um, but yeah, I mean, offensively, Rodgers did not look great at all. Um, Granted, we had some drops. Equanimous St. Brown had a couple. I think he had 1 or 2 drops. He also had a couple routes that he didn't completely run correctly, and you could see Rodgers was frustrated. Robert Tonyan ended up leaving the game. He's become one of Rodgers' favorite targets. It didn't really matter, but David Bakhtiari got hurt. One of the best left tackles, if not the best left tackle in football. Went out with a chest injury. It didn't matter at that point, but at that point, that was pretty much when they took Rodgers out of the game. And he's probably, from what it sounds like, not going to play this week either, so it's a big loss. Play calling on offense. So throughout the season, the staple of the Packers offense has been having a lot of pre-snap movement. We've been running a lot of jet sweep snaps where we have usually 3 running backs out there. Aaron Jones is out there, Jamal Williams is out there, and a lot of people probably haven't heard of him, but Tyler Ervin, he's our returner and one of our running backs. They usually run him on the jet sweep. He was hurt, and he didn't play, and it sounded like from what LaFleur said in his post-game interview that really affected their ability to call some of those plays. They tried to run Aaron Jones kind of more as that pre-snap movement guy. It just seemed like that limited our playbook, and he said that it's not good if you have like a portion of your playbook designed around one player. So hopefully they get that figured out. I mean, it just offensively atrocious. You got to give credit to Tampa's defense, though. They stopped Aaron Jones. I mean, I think that was probably their goal at the beginning of the game was just trying to limit the run game, because if you can limit the run game at the beginning, most teams aren't going to try to force Aaron Rodgers to probably score. But that's what they did, and it ended up working for them because they were able to get some turnovers. Offensive line also. Granted, this is the best team the Packers have played, best defense they've faced. I mean, this knocks them down a little bit. Shifting to defense, and I was saying this last year, Mike Pettin, the defensive coordinator, should be fired at the end of the season. I know the team has been successful even with him as defensive coordinator, but we also won a Super Bowl with Dom Capers as our defensive coordinator. Granted, Dom Capers' play calling worked a little bit better back then. Dom Capers' famous strategy was play super conservative defense and make them run more plays, because if they run more plays, they're statistically more likely to turn the ball over more. It worked for a couple of years, shockingly. not anymore. I believe he's actually an assistant coach in Minnesota now, which is kind of funny because Minnesota's defense isn't doing great. But yeah, the defense. Oh man, we just could not generate a pass rush. And we got Kenny Clark back. I mean, it's clear that Pettin, we have good players on this defense. Adrian Amos is a good player. Za'Darius Smith's a great player. Kenny Clark's a great player. Jair Alexander is one of the best young corners in the game. Like, we have big playmakers on defense, and we have some decent depth. The play calling is just not good. Like, and we just do not bring, like, we blitz in horrible situations. We don't blitz when we should blitz. I mean, it is just – and if you look at, like – so one of the big things this offseason is Blake Martinez, our former middle linebacker. He's with the Giants now. We didn't pay him because Blake Martinez over the last couple of years has exclusively been a tackling machine. Granted, we never really rushed him. We didn't try to have him do a whole lot. And he made comments this offseason saying that Mike Pettin essentially wastes the middle linebacker position and pretty much just uses them to be the mop-up guy. So if the running back gets past the line, the middle linebacker is just supposed to do that. Well, I was kind of like, that's surely not the case. Well, Blake Martinez is having a phenomenal year in New York. And Christian Kirksey, in his limited time playing, has pretty much looked exactly the same as Blake Martinez did in our uniform. So I'm kind of starting to think that might be a problem too. So we're not the high and mighty 16-0 team everyone thought we were. However, as a Packers fan, I saw a lot of press freaking out with Packers fans like, oh, we're so horrible. We're not horrible. Like, we're still a good team. We just played a bad game. So I think they're going to come in better, but I think everybody got really excited and overhyped us a little bit because we played some rough.
I don't know, Mark. I just want to pose some questions for you, and these are kind of inspired by one of my favorite commentators, Colin Cowherd. I was listening to him on Monday afternoon, and he was saying that, Rodgers has a losing record in his career whenever the Packers are losing at any point in the game, and he's behind, guys like Mahomes, Lamar Jackson has a pretty good win percentage. Tom Brady, like Peyton Manning. Obviously, those are some greats, but one of the ones, Tim Tebow had a winning record in games that they trailed at any point. And the second point is Tom Brady is a baller and Aaron Rodgers is a bailer. And what he, I guess, was saying behind that was when the going gets tough, Aaron Rodgers just bails on the team. So I ask to you, what do you think of those crazy Colin Cowherd propositions right there?
I mean, you can't argue with numbers. Like, I can't just flat out deny them because they're true. I saw that as well. Like, I know that. I mean, I don't know. Rodgers is still one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. Okay? I think that Rodgers sometimes tries to do a little bit too much when we're behind in games. And I think that he's someone who thinks through things quite a bit. And I think sometimes he gets in his own head. And I think it sometimes causes him to force things a little bit. He doesn't usually throw interceptions and turn the ball over. Normally, when we're behind, he just, he might overthrow people or underthrow people, or his biggest tendency is to hold on to the ball sometimes when we're behind in a game because he's looking for that deep ball instead of throwing a 10-yard crossing route. He's trying to look for, a 60-yard bomb, and he takes a sack because of it. So I can't argue with the numbers, but I don't know. I mean, I'll still take him in the fourth quarter.
I mean,
if we're down.
Like what you just said kind of reminds me of Romo, where except people would call Romo like a choker, and couldn't, even though Romo had like some of the most, kind of during his time had, I think it was like second or third most fourth quarter comebacks in the years that he played, and it's like sometimes you just try to do too much. Because I think both Rodgers and Romo, and I don't know if I necessarily consider Romo to be as good as Rodgers, but both these guys haven't really ever had a great defense. But when they did, kind of when they do, and when Romo did, they were able to be more successful. And obviously Rodgers, more successful than Romo, as since they won a Super Bowl. But if you give Rodgers like a slim chance on the defensive side, usually good things are going to happen for you guys. So,
well, and part of that too is prior to Aaron Jones, try to think of good Green Bay running backs. Like the last one, like you had Eddie Lacy his rookie year, and I think his sophomore season he was pretty good too. He had some injuries then. Then he got fat. Prior to that,
oh yeah,
you've got James Starks,
oh yeah,
who never really actually anchored down a huge starting role with us. He was usually more of a complimentary back. Um, James Starks isn't someone you think of as a top 15 back in the league, I don't think. Before that, you had Ryan Grant. Again, not bad running backs, but really not great. And if you go way back in time, you get Amon Green. But that's prior to Rodgers. So Rodgers really, for most of his career, has not had a running game to rely on. Especially his first couple years. We had Cedric Benson for a year. I mean, he was just horrible. We had some running backs that were averaging 2 yards a carry. Like Trent Richardson could have latched on and played for us as a starter for 4 years. That's pretty much what we were averaging. I mean, we had some bad running backs for a while. So I think some of those numbers are resulting of that because, you can get up in a game, but if you can't milk clock, you give the other team a chance to get back into the game. So I think some of those numbers may be as a result of that, but there's no excuse now. We've got a great running game. We should have a very balanced offense. I mean, everyone's kind of taking blame for this game. It wasn't one party. It wasn't just Rodgers' fault. It wasn't just Matt LaFleur's fault. It wasn't just the defense. It was a collective bad effort.
I guess I don't know. That's enough Packers talk for me for this week. But I guess moving on to the team the Packers were playing, the Buccaneers. The rich get richer, I guess, even though the Buccaneers still don't look, fantastic. I guess they look good, but not like the best team in the NFC or anything. But they get Antonio Brown. And whether that's good news or bad news, I guess we will find out here in the next few weeks. But I don't know. What do you think? It's kind of surprising to me as far as the personnel goes. Obviously, I think Brown wanted to play with Brady again, but do the Buccaneers really need him? I mean,
Well, if I remember correctly, I think in the offseason there were talks about this, and I believe Bruce Arians flat out said he didn't want Antonio Brown. I may be wrong on that, but I believe there was some sort of there was a press conference where I think it was right after Gronk got signed, and then like people were talking that Brady might want Antonio Brown, and I think Arians was like, we don't need to bring him in. So I'm a little surprised by it. Granted, I did see that Brown apparently has been doing better about um, keeping quiet, not having his name in the media for something negative. He's hasn't been making stupid declarations. So I've seen that he's been practicing a lot more. I mean, if he's getting serious again, I mean, the guy's very talented wide receiver, but I really don't feel like they need him. Like, I'm not sure he really makes them that much better when you look at what they've already got in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean,
the
that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just not sure. I mean, granted, you can never have too many good wide receivers. I'm sure Rodgers would love to have Antonio Brown, but um, I just feel like in their circumstance, they're already loaded at wide
yeah.
receiver.
The only thing
So
I saw is that since Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have kind of been dealing with injuries, that maybe they get Brown and they know he's going to be consistently there. Obviously, I think as far as real life goes, it's great for them. You get another great receiver. Now they clearly have the best receiving core in the league if they didn't already. But, as far as fantasy goes, it just about kills Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's fantasy value. I mean, they go from being wide receiver ones to I would say wide receiver twos, depending on the matchup. But it's
you're not going to see. I don't think you're going to see Antonio Brown move in as an every down wide receiver though to start because I mean he's not playing this week because he's got to go through all the protocols. I'm not sure he'd play the next week because probably has to learn the
I think
system
they
a
said
little bit.
week 9 would be his against the Saints would be the first game that he would probably play.
Yeah, I'm not sure he slides in as their like an every down wide receiver to start. I think by the end of the year you might be talking more about that, but that's also assuming he just doesn't
I
go flat
mean,
out insane once
true,
again.
but I don't know.
So
I think by week 12, as far as that's kind of when the fantasy baseball or the fantasy football playoffs start to kind of roll around. It's just going to be, I don't know. I think it'd be risky to start Evans or Godwin, especially if they keep dealing with these injuries. But I guess the other thing, just to mention real fast, is Des Bryant got signed to the Ravens practice squad. So, I mean, as a Des Bryant fan myself, he's the touchdown leader for the Cowboys all time for wide receiver. I don't know. It's good to see him, get another chance, and I hope to see him actually play for the Ravens at some point this year. So,
yeah, no, I saw that too. I mean, you got to cheer for the guy. I hope he can come back. So, I mean, hopefully he
no need
catches
to
the
bring
ball
that
this
up.
time. But but anyways, moving on to our next storyline. Jimmy G was back, and 49ers
Yes, they did,
actually
and
played a good
maybe the
game.
Rams are just frauds. Maybe they're imposters because their only 4 wins are against the NFC East. So until they beat somebody else, I'm not too convinced that they're really a great team. But I guess give credit to the 49ers. Jimmy G, I guess just maybe the Dolphins was the 49ers wake up call, like the Buccaneers are for the Packers. But
I mean, they did say that Jimmy G was still playing on a bum ankle that game. So, I mean, granted, I don't think that excuses his performance completely during that game, but yeah, I mean, it, I guess I'm not gonna second guess them as hard
yeah, I
next time.
mean, with Kyle
So,
Shanahan, it's kind of hard. Obviously, we were kind of like overreacting a little bit there last week just to overreact, but yeah, it'll be. I still don't know how good of a team they are with how injured their defense is, but I don't know. If they can keep that offensive production up, I think they'll
yeah,
be in at least a decent spot.
well, I'd like to talk briefly about something that happened with the Dolphins this week. Uh, Unfortunately, um, the Dolphins made the questionable decision to end Fitzmagic early and bench him in favor of Tua. Um, I I've seen a lot of outcry from Dolphins fans, kind of wanting to hold on to Fitzpatrick. And granted, I think a lot of people, are like, "Oh, Fitzpatrick kind of fizzles out after like week 8." Is what everybody says. But I mean, right now he's playing. I mean, he's not playing fantastic, but he's playing good. Um, Tua. I don't feel like there's any rush to put Tua out on the field. Usually, when you see a rookie, who they say is not going to start, actually end up starting, it's either due to an injury or a horrible performance through the first couple weeks,
Oh,
also known as the Mike Glennon performance. Um, but I think it's a real questionable call. I personally don't like it. Um, I also saw that apparently Fitzpatrick didn't find out from the coaches, the locker room didn't find out from the organization. I mean, it just seems like a very poor way to handle this because from what I've heard, Fitzpatrick is one of those guys in a locker room that everybody loves, can really rally the team behind him. So I
yeah.
personally don't like it, but
I don't
what are your
quite
thoughts?
understand it. I thought the whole thing was we're gonna bench Tua, let him get completely healthy, and maybe he is completely healthy now. Um, but just let him kind of watch Fitzpatrick learn the ins and outs of the offense. I mean, I don't think Brian Flores is going anywhere as coach for a while unless they just all of a sudden become horrible, which doesn't look like it'll happen. I mean, but Fitzmagic 3-3. I mean, you keep that pace up at 8-8. It's not like they have an overly difficult schedule. I mean, 8-8 could be the 7th seed in the AFC potentially. They're ahead of the Patriots right now. Uh, I just, you know, I just, I don't get it. I don't know if they're trying to compete. I don't think anybody in their right mind is thinking the Dolphins can compete with, the Steelers, the Titans, the Chiefs, the Ravens to win this year. So I don't know. I think it was more of just the shock factor of, especially the shock factor to Fitzpatrick. I think he knew that, at some point Tua would take over, but I don't think he was thinking after I go 3-3, it just, I, it is what it is, I guess, for them. who knows? You could see a classic Fitz magic here where Tua starts like 2 games. They decide to put Fitzpatrick back in the fourth quarter of a game they're losing in, and they come back and win or something. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm not quite sure what they're doing, but who knows? Tua could come in and just be absolutely great and make us all look like fools. So
He could. I mean, he could be Justin Herbert out there, you know. But I just feel like it's rushing it a little bit, you know. If Fitzmagic was playing terrible football, I'd understand this move a little bit more, but that's just not the case right now. So, anyways, let's keep it in the division a little bit. You mentioned them, being ahead of the Patriots.
and
Patriots ended
give
up
give
losing to the
Ben Font
Broncos,
some
which was
credit,
quite an
like
upset.
from 2 weeks ago, whenever he picked the Broncos.
Yeah,
But
I mean, props to
I
him.
don't know what else to say besides the
Props
Patriots.
to him.
Oh, I guess the thing I was gonna say is that's the Cam Newton I know and love right there. Was that performance?
Yeah, it was not a great performance. He did say that he needs to play a lot better. So I'm not going to expect that type of performance every time from the Patriots. You know, you'd like to think that with Belichick at the helms, maybe that doesn't
I
become a
mean,
pattern, but
it's not
who
That
knows?
game was not
I mean,
Belichick's fault. I mean, they had like a 4th and 9 to try to win.
I know.
Going down and tried to win the game, and Cam Newton misses a wide open receiver by like 6 yards. So I don't know. I think you can't rely on Cam Newton to pass the ball down the field to win. I don't see them winning very many games that they get behind by 10 points or more. But I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of Cam Newton as far as his quarterback ability. I think he's a great athlete, but a pure quarterback, no, I've never been a fan of him.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely an athlete to have back there. He's got that dual threat capability, but I don't think anyone's really that confident in him being a solid pocket passer who could consistently make throws down the field. But I don't know. I mean, I think that division, you know, I mean, between the Bills, the Patriots, and the Dolphins, who knows? Could be. I mean, I think personally the Bills have got the advantage there, but
Yeah, I mean the
I
Bills
mean,
haven't looked
honestly, it
great the
could be
last
wide
2
open.
weeks, but I think they have the advantage. Now they kind of have the advantage of being the best team in kind of a not great division. But I guess how about those Titans?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Tannehill looks great. Derrick Henry looked great pulling off that massive run. It's always fun to watch him get those big runs because it looks like he's running in slow motion. Like he looks like a slow running back when you watch him running. But then you watch these
I know.
corners and they lose ground on him. Like it's strange to watch. It's almost surreal, but Titans look good. Like the offense is really clicking. I mean, no doubt about that. I mean, there's definitely still a force to be reckoned with. I think you might be right,
Well,
Jonas.
they're
Like
gonna have a tough matchup this
16
week,
0.
but right now they almost choked that game against the Texans. To be fair to the Texans, it was, whew, man, The Texans tried to steal that one out from under him, but the Titans had the benefit of getting the ball first in overtime, and he knew it was Deshaun Watson. I don't know if you saw that. He was like, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me!" Whenever he saw the coin toss, they lost it. So,
Yeah. Well, I only have one more. When we talked about the Falcons, a little bit earlier, getting their first win at the cost of the Braves.
just
I'm
thank
not sure
goodness
if you have
Julio
much more you want
Jones
to
looked
cover there,
good.
really.
I did see, as far as the Falcons potentially trading Matt Ryan and Julio Jones at the trade deadline. The only thing is they have massive contracts, so I don't know who would. I don't know. Maybe the Cowboys trade for Matt Ryan. I don't know. That'd be wild.
I saw that as a trade.
No,
I don't
I
feel
don't
like
think
that'd be
so
much of
either.
a step up from Andy. Like if you
Brandon Whedon
guys were
again.
starting someone else, yeah, if you guys were starting Brandon Whedon, that'd make a whole lot more sense. But no, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I think trading Julio might be more likely, but trading a
I don't know who
massive
you would trade him
contract is
to. Maybe
tough.
maybe Aaron Rodgers can get Julio
But,
finally.
but Rodgers always mentioned that if he could pick any wide receiver in the league to add
Okay, I couldn't
alongside
remember if it was
Devontae,
Hopkins or
he'd
if it was
actually pick
Julio.
DeAndre Hopkins. But
I would take it in
but I'm
fantasy.
sure he'd settle for Julio.
For
Yeah, well, that would be wild. But we talked a little bit about potential trades there. There was a trade this week that was a little bit puzzling to me. The Vikings
yeah,
traded
something like
Yannick
that.
Ngakwe, who they acquired from Jacksonville over the offseason. He's got 5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles in 5 games, and they traded him for 2 picks, one being conditional, I believe. I just don't understand this move personally. I mean, I guess you could maybe think of it as them trying to acquire more picks, but I mean, with his performance so far, I would think you'd want to hold on to him for the future. Daniil Hunter's obviously out for season, getting neck surgery, but coming back next year, if you have Ngakwe and Daniil Hunter on your line, that's a force to be reckoned there. I don't understand it. Do you think maybe the Vikings should try to tank this season
Do
with
you
the
know
Bears and the
if
Packers already
they got
taking a
any first
substantial
round
lead in the
picks
division?
out of this?
No, I want to say it was a third. Might have been a second. Might have been like something like a second and a fourth. Um,
Yeah, well, while you're pulling that up,
let me see if I can pull that up real
yeah, I
quick.
think they should. I mean, I don't know if you can still out tank the Jets to get Trevor Lawrence, but I mean, it almost feels with how Kirk Cousins has played this year, it feels like you almost got to try. I mean, I feel like Trevor Lawrence would be more willing to go to the Vikings. And then I guess if you don't get Lawrence, you could always draft Justin Fields. But clearly the thing that's been holding them back the last 2 years, and I mean, I like Kirk Cousins as a guy. I think he's really awesome. Whenever he said about playing this year, if I die, I die. It was like, is he in Rocky? What is going on? Like, but he's clearly the thing holding the team back. I mean, Stephon Diggs hated him so much he traded to Buffalo. So it just, I don't know. It's kind of sad to me to see him play so bad this year, and I know their defense is bad, but good night, nurse. I don't. Yeah, well, with that
It
value,
was a third round
why
pick.
I don't know why trade him. It doesn't make any sense to me because if you get a first round pick, you're kind of thinking like maybe the Dolphins' philosophy from last year, which is trade everyone on our team that's worth any value, and they get a whole bunch of first rounders, and then now they've been kind of producing. They signed Byron Jones, who hasn't even played the last couple games because he's been hurt, but I guess Byron Jones actually made somewhat of a difference for the Cowboys looking back on it, but I don't know. The Dolphins, yeah, if you're trying to do that Dolphin strategy there and kind of the Raiders strategy of trading, getting first round picks, and using them to get just cheaper versions of the players you just traded away, I mean, it works if you actually hit on your draft picks, but a third rounder, man, you better be good at scouting, which I don't know how great the Vikings have been at drafting as of late, but I don't know.
Well, and their GM came out. I believe it was their GM. It might have been team president or another front office member. Did flat out say they were not tanking. So that makes my, it's one thing to trade him. And I think there is a conditional fourth or fifth rounder in there, but still, I mean that just still doesn't make sense to me unless you're
I don't.
actively trying to tank. So yeah, I it's a puzzling move to me.
I mean, if you
Vikings
just
fans have
like,
got to be really
there's all
frustrated
these
right now.
quarterbacks on the market this year, and after last year, thinking, well, maybe Kirk Cousins can do something for us, but like that game against the 49ers, he just got flat out outplayed in the playoffs last year. So, with all the quarterbacks on the market last year and all the quarterbacks that were, good enough to be drafted, it's almost like you almost feel like let down because you're just have such a average quarterback. It's kind of what I thought with like Dak, and I think you kind of get with Carson Wentz even just. And I guess I'll ask you this, considering I don't know what your response is going to be, considering you've had Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre for your entire life of watching the Packers. But would you rather have an absolutely horrible quarterback or a quarterback that is so average that it's just so painfully average? Which of those two options would you rather have?
Well, if you have an absolutely horrible quarterback, you're not going to have him for long, hopefully. I mean, I guess it depends on the rest of the team. I mean, you can still win games if you have a horribly average quarterback.
But you're just never going to win the Super
I
Bowl
mean,
with that. I don't. I know. It's
you're never
just,
going to win the Super
I don't
Bowl
know.
with a
That's how I
terrible
kind of felt
quarterback
about
either.
Prescott. Like last year was like he was just like so painfully average. Like it's like you clearly would want him over like 16 other quarterbacks, but it's just like so like, oh, if we just had a slightly better quarterback, we could be in such a better place. I don't know.
Yeah, just touch on the Vikings. They should have brought back Teddy Bridgewater. Would have been a smart move for the fans would have loved that move.
I mean,
It would have been a good
I
move for
think
them, in
everyone
my
knows why
opinion.
they didn't,
But
but
anyways, point
right
aside.
now, like retroactively looking, it's like, yeah, I guess they
No,
should have kept him. Yes.
but well, we should probably get into our picks here. So, like we mentioned, we both agreed earlier in the week that we were going to pick the Eagles, um, even though this is being recorded after that game. So, Um, the next matchup we have is the Steelers and the
This
Titans.
one's going to be a barn
Which-
burner right here.
Should be quite an interesting matchup. Oh, man. You know, there's a part of me that wants to pick the Steelers, but you did pick the Titans to go 16-0. And I don't want to lose another game to you because I know
But
you're
you could
probably going
gain
to pick
another
the
game if
Titans.
the Steelers win.
I'm going Steelers. I've been picking the Steelers like almost every week, I think. You know, it hasn't bitten me too hard. Their defense is still phenomenal.
And I'm going to pick
Offense
the
is
Steelers
getting
just
it
because
done.
you thought I was
I
going to
got
pick the
Steelers.
Titans. No, I'm kidding. The Titans are going 16-0, baby. Woo!
Oh, man.
I'm sticking with the Titans. Oh, yeah, it definitely could, but
This one could go either way, in my opinion. This should be a heck of a game. But next, we've got the Cowboys at Washington. I know I picked the Cowboys last week against Arizona, but I'm going to pick them again because the Washington
even I'm
football
going to pick the
team
Cowboys this week
is not
just
Arizona.
because Washington is so bad. I don't know how they beat Philadelphia that first game. Oh, yeah.
Kyle Allen is not good. They should start Alex Smith. Even if Alex Smith
Yeah,
doesn't
honestly,
play
you're
good,
right. They should just start Alex Smith the
it
rest of the
can't be
year.
any worse than Kyle Allen. Just let him, in an act of good faith, go out, finish the season actually playing.
Yeah, honestly.
You know, see if he's got anything left in the tank.
Yeah, it was Panthers and the Saints.
Next, we've
Ooh,
I'm going with the Panthers. Teddy Bridgewater is coming back, looking for a little bit of revenge against his former team for picking good old Drew Brees and Jameis
I
Winston
guess I'll
over
take
him.
the free game and
So
go with the Saints
I'm
then.
picking the Panthers. You're no fun, Jonas.
The Steelers
I'm the one making all the fun
that's
picks.
Not like a fun pick. That's a valid pick.
No, I know. But I saw Michael Thomas has a hamstring injury again, so if he doesn't play,
Well, maybe
might be a free win for me. But next we've got the 15-1 Packers going up against the Texans. I just said the Packers record for the end of the year, so obviously I'm picking the Packers here. I think you're going to see a much more polished game. I'm going to guess they had a very serious practice this week, and they're going to come out with good game plan against the Texans.
Man, this is hard because I really want to pick the Texans. Oh, man, this is... Ooh. Man, their defense is so bad, though.
Why not?
I know, I do have like a 7-game lead.
You've got such a nice lead over me.
And at this point in our picks, we're probably at 9 games. I'll go with the Texans. Why not? Just because Ryan Tannehill is better than Aaron Rodgers right now in this season. I'm just using an excuse
what does
to
Ryan
bring up the
Tannehill
Titans
have
as
to
much
do
as
about this
possible.
game?
They're my team for this year. Forget the Cowboys.
All right, I'm a little bit confused about how Ryan Tannehill relates to the Texans, but moving on. We've got the Ohio matchup. between two historically awful teams. Teams that we actually have paid interns to cover on our show.
Oh,
the
the
Browns
classic
with the
poop
Bengals.
stain versus the Bungles.
I mean, I've got to pick the Browns just because I feel like they have more potential to score points in this game, and I feel like they have a better defense. But Baker
Well, the
Mayfield
thing
could
is
also
that they
go
don't
out
really
there
even
and
need Mayfield to do much.
play horrible.
Just give the ball to Kareem Hunt like literally every play, and they'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. So you going with the Browns too? Next we've got another matchup between the Lions and the Falcons. I'm going to go with the Lions because Matt Patricia's on a roll right now, and he's trying to stay off the hot seat. So I got to cheer for Matt Patricia to stay in Detroit as long as possible.
I just think they're
I'm going with the
slightly better. I mean, they could be, or are they like 2-3? I mean, they could be 3-2. They're not too bad. I mean, they should have beaten the Bears. So yeah, I think the Lions are a little bit better than what their record says, and if they didn't choke games so hard, but.
Well, when Kenny Golladay is healthy, that offense is a lot better. So that's kind of been the struggle with Golladay, is keeping him on the field. But next we've got the Buccaneers
so this is
at the Raiders
against two teams.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this.
That at least myself have kind of flip-flopped on if I choose them or not. So it's kind of a hard pick, to be honest. But, oh, man, I feel like the Buccaneers are going to be riding high off of that win against the Packers and might be a little bit too cocky. And the Raiders, last time they played, beat the Chiefs, which they might be a little bit cocky off that win. Oh, my goodness, this is hard. Oh. I'm going with the Buccaneers as much as I want to go with the Raiders.
Oh, I'm going with the Raiders. They beat the Chiefs, man. I mean, I don't know. I think Derek Carr is going to go out there and sling it with his eye black.
I was about to pick the Raiders before I remembered they just beat the Chiefs, because my argument was going to be, well, the Buccaneers beat the Packers. They're being too cocky, and then it's like, oh, well, the Raiders just beat the Chiefs, so I guess that's not really an argument. But
yeah, I don't know. I think this is a toss-up, just kind of like how the Steelers and Titans, either one could pull this one out. Not the same quality teams, though, as the Steelers and Titans, in my opinion. But next, we've got the Jaguars at the Chargers. I'm going with the Chargers.
Yeah.
Because the Jaguars were posers after week 1. So, and Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I agree.
Big fan of him.
I think
so.
Jaguars are just bad.
Got to pick them. Yeah.
Man.
Next, we've got the 49ers at the Patriots. You got to see, the thing here is you got to determine which Cam Newton, what Cam Newton is showing up, and what Jimmy G is showing up
to me as well.
So
I'm going to pick the 49ers here just because I think Cam Newton is garbage.
I'm also picking the 49ers. I think Cam Newton's going to struggle against him. I think New England has a better secondary, but I don't know. 49ers after last week, if they can keep that up, they should be able to pull this one out. Next, we've got the Chiefs at the Broncos. Do the Broncos upset the Chiefs?
I hope you pick the Broncos here because it'll be the third time you pick against the Chiefs, and you've been wrong on the other two picks. So, no wait, didn't you pick? No, the Patriots versus the Chiefs game got rescheduled, didn't it? Yeah, you've picked against the Chiefs 3 times. Do you know that?
No, they played.
Oh, thank goodness.
I'm picking the Chiefs this time, though. So I like to make wild picks.
Maybe I should switch it to the Broncos.
This would just be a stupid pick.
Yeah, you're right. I won't. Not after that Washington experiment last week.
Do it. You won't. Next, we've got the Seahawks at the Cardinals.
I'm going.
Got to go with Russ,
my man.
So I'm going with the Seahawks.
Kyler Murray, baby. This game might be like 45-42.
Kyler Murray is about to choke. He's going to go throw 4 interceptions
the Seahawks defense.
To Jamal
They're
Adams.
A hot pile of garbage.
It's.
Oh,
yeah, well,
man.
he's going to single-handedly save them this week.
That would blow my mind.
I mean, last time I made a specific player prediction, I wasn't anywhere close. I picked Jonathan Taylor to 173 rushing yards. I think he was on pace for that if they would have just rushed the ball 45 times, but no one ever listens to me. So, next we've got the Bears at the Rams. The Rams, a team who I think underperforms, and a team like the Bears every single one of their wins has been ugly.
Overperform while during the game they're underperforming. It's like a wild dynamic that they have.
I know. Well, it's because the defense still plays well, and the offense usually goes out and struggles at the beginning until the defense kind of gets the momentum.
220 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and 1 rushing touchdown for 1 yard again. Like, who are you picking?
I think I've picked against the Bears every week. And I'm doing it again. This team surely cannot keep on winning. Like, these are some ugly football games. And I know Nick Foles said that we're okay with winning ugly. Oh. But come on. Like, they cannot keep winning these games. And the Bears don't have a good offensive line. So I don't think that bodes very well for them with Aaron Donald. So
just give me Nick Foles.
I'm going with the Rams.
And that's it. Even if his play's terrible, I'll still take him over Jared Goff at this point. Oh, man. How does it feel knowing the Bears are going to be 6-1 and 2 games ahead in the division after this week?
I hope that's not the case. They've got to be one of the worst They're just,
I know. I still don't understand it.
it's just hard to believe.
Oh man, it's.
They're just getting lucky. Like they could very easily have lost every single one of their
But that's
games.
the NFL for you.
Oh, yeah, that's
Well,
spent a lot of time on the
I
NFL
guess
today.
you want to mention anything about college football? I know the Big Ten will be coming back this week.
Big Ten is back, baby. And with that, Graham Mertz, someone you may not have heard of, is about to be the next Russell Wilson. Highly touted prospect coming into Wisconsin as a quarterback. You never really hear that, do you? Highly touted quarterback picks to go to Wisconsin. You know, you're used to running backs, and granted, you're not used to even the running backs being highly touted. So he went out tonight and put up a phenomenal performance against the Illini. In his first half, he was 14 for 14 with 190 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is about as excited as I've been about a quarterback since Russell Wilson. So look out for the Badgers. They're going to take down Ohio State, and they're going to win the playoff.
I truly hope so, too, because I hate Ohio State.
We're switching. We are switching from being a team that produces running backs and offensive linemen to being a team that produces quarterbacks and wide receivers.
Well, that means you'll lose at least one game to like Northwestern then.
Yeah.
Whoa. Oklahoma has
except in our case it'll probably be like Rutgers or Nebraska. Hey, Rutgers is a quality program for their athletics.
They weren't too bad in basketball
academics,
1 year, 10 years ago.
Yeah, you would think that eventually things would change, but nope, they just don't. I mean, at least Maryland contributes on the basketball side. Rutgers,
maybe we need to go
to my knowledge, doesn't contribute in any
something weird like women's water polo or something. They're probably not even good at that.
We cover women's college hockey.
No offense to the Rutgers women's hockey team,
I know
they even have one.
Got a good women's hockey team. We'll do some scouting into Rutgers athletics and see if we can find maybe
surely
if they have any if they've ever produced a Hall of Famer in any sport. I mean, you would think so, but I mean, Rutgers.
I like how this section just turned into a Rutgers hate.
Yeah, they're not good. I'm actually just looking at a brief article right now that's the 50 best players and athletes in Rutgers history, and currently I haven't heard of any of them.
Is it one of those like click-through articles?
Well, it starts at 50, so it's taking me a while. It's not click-through. I'm just trying to look. Number 35 is Reed Jackson, a lacrosse player. Still looking. I'm seeing a couple wrestlers on here.
Yeah,
still none I've ever heard of
for Rutgers.
Okay. Jason and Devin McCourty.
No wonder why Bill Belichick drafted him.
Both went to Rutgers.
What?
They only rank
I mean,
in
I
at
don't know
number
if they'll
20.
end up being Hall of Famers.
So, there's got to be some
But
more quality
at
players.
least we know who they are.
No, I know. Let's see. One of them's
No
a
idea who that
women's
is.
college basketball player, Cappie Pondexter. Yeah, I don't think she ever
Hodgepodge.
played in the WNBA even. So, Todd Frazier. Let's see. Number 7, Alex
Man, what a good
Kroll, Carly
representation of
Lloyd,
Rutgers right there.
Phil Selleck, Ray Rice. And number 1, Paul Robeson.
For what sport?
Apparently, he earned 12 varsity letters during his brilliant career at Rutgers. Football looks like. And when Walter Camp named him an All-American in 1918, he called him the greatest end to ever trod the field. His many achievements in life would trump his athletic career, but any discussion about great Rutgers athletes begins with him.
Why did Rutgers join the Big Ten again? Wow, that's just depressing. But
oh man.
Well, maybe that can go under the sports we don't care about section. And we'll try to fit some more random Rutgers statistics in next week, if we can find if they've ever won like a championship and anything. Surely, I mean, if they go all the way back,
surely
that guy goes all the way
maybe
back
like
to
a test tournament or something.
Won, random college football conference A with like 4 teams in it. But, oh man. But anyway, as we progress down these things that we truly do not care about, getting back into the tennis world a little bit, we have Sasha Zverev, the German, and Diego Schwartzman both win in the quarterfinals of whatever tournament they're currently playing. I don't know what it's called. It's just another tournament in the year, I guess. But they were the number 1 and 2 seeds for this, so I guess nobody really too difficult to have to beat. And then Justin Thomas, I mean, I guess he's one of the, I've heard of him at least. So he's at least kind of well-known golfer, is currently sitting at 14 under in whatever golf tournament is going on. So you've heard of Justin Thomas, right? Yeah. I didn't recognize any of the other 4 golfers that were in the top 5.
Oh, of course.
And it didn't even bother showing me the rest of the field, who was even in the field. So for all I know, there could only be 5 golfers in this whole tournament. Yeah, I don't know if that's for just today's round. I don't know when this tournament started, because usually they start on Thursdays. But that'd be pretty, 2 -7s. That'd be pretty impressive. But, well, that's it for tennis and golf, I guess, and, good old Rutgers sports. But our favorite sport here on the podcast, MLS. Take it away, Mark.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't heard a single lick of news about the MLS. Aside from, and I don't even know if this guy, actually, I don't even think he plays for the MLS. I think he plays for some team over in Europe or something. Something about him, getting caught with, 3 side chicks or something like that. And I guess he's like a really good player over there, from what I heard. Um, basically sounded like, one of them, he got her pregnant and pretty much just flat out told her that he didn't owe her anything. Um, that's just kind of from a passing read. I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to it because, well, it's soccer, and I care about soccer and the MLS about as much as I cared to even try thinking about what creative statement to come up to express how much I care about MLS. So, and as you can tell,
yeah, I was thinking
I clearly didn't
maybe
care
you're
to
going to
think
say you
about
care
that at all.
about the MLS about as much as that guy cares about the girl he got pregnant. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe I'll save that for next week. Maybe more details will come out or something, but I think that wraps up everything we have for this week, content-wise. So this has been episode 6 of the MJ Sports Podcast. We'll be back with you next week, and as I mentioned in our prior episode, we're working on changing how we do things a little bit. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we can deliver to you a little bit higher quality of a podcasting performance.
I mean, we already have great content, so
better audio and all that jazz. So
that's right.
It's true. Our content is impeccable. I mean,
I know, honestly.
But we should have our own, show on Sports Center or something. But we're trying not to get tied down right now because we're focusing on changing the world in our own professional careers. But anyway, thank you for listening.
That's right.
We'll be back next week.
We're too good.